Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, we are here. Time is now. Like we teased in our review, if you saw it before, it is spoiler talk. And we have, of course, from Rockland Graves Productions, Evan joining us on the channel once
Hello,
again.
hello.
Thank you,
It's great to
Evan.
be back.
I'm glad to have you here. And yes, I think we had talked about this just after we finished talking Scream 6 spoilers. We were like, when's the next time we can collab? And you at that time had just started your Evil Dead dissection, and we were like, yeah, we're going to talk about a couple of the films. I'm doing a video on them and everything. So it's like, why don't we just talk about Evil Dead Rise spoilers? And today is the day. And you did point out that this might be another echo chamber conversation. You were hinting that you might have a couple of hot takes there, and Luke just promised he's going to trash the film, so that way we at least have a differing opinion. So yeah, I think it's all good. But yeah, man, I think to kick things off again, I have a couple of topic points to kind of guide us. We'll just do the round table here, but yeah, I just want to know everybody's initial first opening thoughts of the film. We'll start with Evan, Luke, and then I'll go. So why don't we just kick things off? How did you feel about the movie as soon as it ended?
Okay, so I want to briefly contextualize my experience with Evil Dead so that this
Yeah.
makes more sense. Up until late last year, early this year, around that time, I had only seen the original and the 2013 movie.
Oh wow.
I had never seen Evil Dead 2. I had never seen Army of Darkness. So as I've been going through these movies on the channel, that's been the first time I've seen them. So things are still settling for me. And after watching all of them, Army of Darkness was my number one. I fucking love Army of Darkness. I've only seen Evil Dead Rise once. And I was saying I have a little bit of a hot take. This is my favorite Evil Dead movie.
That's your hot take?
That's it. I came out of
Okay.
this movie bouncing. I came home and someone asked me how it was and I just yelled. I was over the moon, just full of adrenaline. I was so excited. I felt like this did everything I wanted it to do. I genuinely had a moment while this movie was playing. It was very brief where I was like, man, I've got to be dreaming because there's no way this is as good as this is right now. For what I like in horror movies and Evil Dead movies, this man, I adore it. I need to go see it again. I've been buzzing since last night.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Luke, your thoughts, sir? Now that you've had a
Uh,
night to sit on it?
yeah, as the credits were rolling, I think that's one of the things where you have that reflection period as the credits are going in the theater to be like, is this as good as I'm thinking it is? Because it's like we go into this, we had our Scream discussion. Legacy horror hasn't been that well done over the past couple of years. And going into Evil Dead, you're like, all three of us, the franchise is near and dear to our hearts. So it's like, you're already kind of protective a little bit, and you want to like it. So sometimes I feel like that gets clouded in your head. But like reflecting on this, sitting with it for a day, I can resonate with Evan easily that this, I feel like this is such a well done movie. This is such a big win, I think, in terms of the horror community, the Evil Dead community, that this could easily take a top spot in the Evil Dead franchise. And for me, I'm still mowing it over. The original trilogy there, I mean, obviously it's got a different tone than something like the 2013 and even Evil Dead Rise. So I think, for me, this is like, 1A, 1B, 1C at this point, where it's like they all have something different to offer. But Evil Dead Rise is a huge win for me. I absolutely love it. Nothing has changed from our initial review other than, I could love it even more than I did 24 hours ago.
Awesome. And, I'm right there with you guys. I did really, really enjoy the film. Is it my favorite of the series? Again, like Luke said, I could see it. I could definitely understand. Again, all these movies are great. Like we've been, all of us have been doing on our channels here and stuff. We've been kind of watching these movies the last few weeks, few months. For me, I rewatched all of them to write a script for a video essay. And now I've been editing it for a couple weeks, and like I have just gotten a very intimate kind of feeling with these movies, just cutting clips out and having to rewatch it several times, just really shallow and short versions of the film. So
I'm familiar.
I've had a lot of time to really mull things over, and I gotta say, I still think, you know, and I'm gonna see the movie a couple more times this weekend. I think my goal is to try to get 2 more viewings in before Monday, if I can. But I would say that right now, this one sits maybe at a solid number 3 for me. I'm gonna give it to Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead 2013, and then this. But again, it's like that could change by next week. You know, I could see this again, and then this could get higher, it could get lower, you know, but at the end of the day, they're not bad films. And I think that was the biggest thing that I was worried about going into this. Is this going to be the one that kind of topples the structure? Is this going to be the one that's just like, you know, we have this great thing going? Is this going to be the first one where everybody's like, yeah, they're all great, but then, you know, Evil Dead Rises, meh, but it is what it is. And I'm just so happy we did not get that, because I, again, like you guys, had a fantastic time with this. I thought it was an adrenaline rush. You know, probably about midway through the movie, I was sitting there and I was just saying, like, there's no way this is going to disappoint. Like, I was just like, there's no possible way. Because, like, through the Halloween films and through Scream, the last 2 entries, I've gotten to that point and I've just been like, this could go either way. And this one, I'm like, there's way too much I already love about it. And so I guess that's going to bring us into the next section here I want to talk about, is going to be the cast themselves before we start getting into the more technical aspects, because I feel like we'll spend a good thing on that. I genuinely thought that, you know, our main 2 protagonists, I mean, I guess if you want to go with it, our main Deadite and then our main actress there, both wonderful. Did an absolutely fantastic job. Evan, how do you feel about the cast as a whole?
Yeah, so I was saying Evil Dead Rise might be my favorite. There's one thing that I can say that's not a might, it's not a maybe. Alyssa Sutherland is my favorite Deadite of the whole franchise. Her performance was so fucking electric, and she committed so hard to every bit of that physical performance and her line delivery and the way that they lit her and framed her. She was fantastic. What's the actor's name who played Beth again? What was her? Lily?
So I got them all right here. It
Yeah,
was
I didn't
Lily
pull it up.
Sullivan. So we
Lily
got
Sullivan?
Alyssa Sutherland and Lily
And that's
Sullivan.
why I
So
was
we're gonna get
confused. Yeah.
that mixed up.
And she also, God, she's so good. It's an interesting thing to see now, because this is the second Evil Dead movie without Ash Williams, without Bruce Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
And I think twice now they've proved that there can be another protagonist who is super fun to watch. Because I thought Mia from the 2013 movie was great.
Fantastic.
And now I'm totally on board with Beth. She fucking kicked ass. The child actors were also like really good. Often with these darker movies, child actors can be a problem because they can break the immersion. You know, they're kids, but they did a really good job. The movie certainly didn't pull any punches where that's concerned. But yeah, I don't really have any complaints with the cast. There weren't any bad apples. Even the really minor characters, like those neighbors that were down the hall, didn't get much screen time, but their performances were also pretty solid.
Yeah, and that we highlighted that in our review too.
Yeah.
Is that the neighbors were also pretty great, which is one of those things where you don't get that in a lot of these horror properties. My reference was the David Gordon Green Halloween films of just like these weird oddball just characters that like they feel like they're in a different movie. And they did not. They felt like actual people they felt like human beings, you know?
Yeah.
And that was crazy. Because like even the old man neighbor who, when he first came on screen, I was expecting him, he's gonna be some racist dick, I bet. No, he's just acting like anybody else's neighbor in that situation. Like, damn, like let's work together.
Yeah, I was totally expecting a complete stereotype. I was like, oh, I know exactly what archetype this character is, but no, I didn't. Dude was just trying to find his cat.
Yeah.
Like I love that kind of shit. That was great. The casting is really, really solid.
And Luke, your standouts in the cast, any highlights?
I mean, I think everyone talking about the cast is going to go back to Alyssa Sutherland, just because, I mean, she eats up so much scenery in the entire film itself. And, you know, one of the big things is, you know, Dylan and I had talked about it, just the dynamic, you know, that we're used to in terms of the Evil Dead franchise. You know, friends go out to a cabin in the woods. This one's different. This is, a mother and her children, and then also her sister. So we're already getting that different dynamic. And I think that's something where you have to cast someone that can kind of bring the bang, in a sense, where it's like, you kind of get the feeling of what they're going through prior, to becoming a deadite, and then after she becomes a deadite. So you have to really make it count at the very beginning. And then as soon as we flip that switch, that's when we kind of really get the dynamic that it's okay, these stakes are really high here. And I think Alyssa Sutherland absolutely brings that, and the charisma that she has. I know we talked about it in our review. I mean, I think it's just evident in that the little peephole scene where it's like she is right through there, and trying to persuade her daughter to open the door. And my gosh, it's absolutely epic. And it's like, you look at the 2013 like the kind of versions of the Deadites that are in that film, there's a different, I don't know, I think there's a different feel for Alyssa Sutherland, and even the kids' take on this one, where it's like, I don't know, for me, in this one, they feel a little more charismatic, and they kind of have that demented humor that we're used to, like in the original Evil Dead. And I think we get some of that in 2013, but I think it's really evident here.
The ones in 2013 talked like fucking teenagers in Call of Duty lobbies.
Yeah, and it's like, in a different take where it's like, with these, in theory, I think the discussion's been, it's a different book. So it's like, I'm curious to see if that is kind of possession-wise, is that a different, we're being possessed by different demons in becoming different kinds of deadites. I don't know, but it really brought that kind of idea into my head as well. But overall, I think the casting was great. Again, the kids were absolutely, I mean, again, those are give or take, where it's like this can either go really well or really bad. And one of my standouts was Danny. I absolutely love that character. Where it's like they don't harp on the background of everything. We're not really getting into the nitty gritty of backstories. It's like you take them at face value, and we're dealing with the issue at hand. And I absolutely love that, where it's like, we're not going to dive too deep into anything because of the stakes that are arising in Evil Dead Rise. So, I think it was really well done. I mean, the casting was perfect. There were no gripes on my end either. Again, I'm in total agreement with Evan.
Man, you need to try and play devil's advocate.
They were totally trash. I mean,
yeah, no, one of us needs to.
Okay, I can say, if we want to talk gripes, if there's any gripe that I can give towards the cast, and this goes into a bigger gripe if we do want to play something a little bit different here. Not that there was anything directly bad about them, but I feel like the later half of this review, especially getting into our spoilers, is going to be like this. I think we've all said it. Luke, you were the only one out of the three of us that said that you actually enjoyed how they did it. But was the cold open and the wraparound? I just feel like that was wholly unnecessary. The longer I sit with it, it's not bad. I love the opening shot with the titles. I think that's great. But like, even the acting of the actual Deadite in there, I wasn't completely sold. I wasn't completely like bought into it. But I think that is just juxtaposed again to the Deadites that we deal with later in the film, and we have that connection to them. We see the family connection and everything that they have. So they almost feel very weak on that side and very unnecessary. But other than that, yeah, again, I love the family. I thought everybody did a fantastic job there. I love the neighbors. And again, that is just really rare in a modern horror film. So, if you want me to play devil's advocate, I can throw that out there. But I definitely want to touch on that cold open and wraparound as we go deeper. Because, that's a bit of a point of contention out there.
I didn't get to go super in depth on it in my review, so I'd like to talk about that for sure.
Absolutely. But before we get into that stuff, I want to know favorite moments. So, Evan, do you have a favorite moment in the film? I know you love it, but is there a standout sequence or anything in your mind? And again, I'm not holding you to it. If you come back here a month from now and say, no, it's this, I get you.
I think that's very important to acknowledge right now, because we've all seen it once.
Mm-hmm.
We're riding that high right now of the first Evil Dead movie in 10 years.
Yeah.
Which is why I didn't say anything about like it being potentially my favorite in my review, because I'm like, recency bias is here. I got to see it a few more
Absolutely.
times. I would be seeing it more times this weekend if I wasn't going to Beau is Afraid, but I am going to see Evil Dead again. Um, you know, how much into spoilers are we? Are we
The
just
whole thing. This is
okay? I can
completely
just
off the
go.
top.
All
Yeah, go
right.
anything you
So
want.
obviously, like, there's so many moments in this movie that are incredible. The peephole sequence is going to be iconic. That's going to go down. That was fantastic. I, dude, when I realized, I saw this with my brother, and when I saw that the Deadites were combining, me and
Hmm.
my brother, we turned to each other and we were like, no fucking way. Because one of the things, my review isn't out for yet, but one of the things that I had a complaint about with Evil Dead 2013 was that I wanted there to be something more monstrous, some crazy Deadite to close the movie off. And when I saw this, the shot of it being revealed through the fog down in the parking garage,
Yeah.
I had goosebumps. I was just jaw hanging open. My eyes were wide as hell. I was elated to be seeing that. That was the most memorable thing for me was that. But there are so many moments I could go into. If I'm gonna try to focus in on one, it's got to be the feeling I had when that fucking thing came into play.
Oh, absolutely.
That
Luke.
grafted Deadite.
Yeah, no, I will definitely be touching on that as well. But Luke, what is your pick for favorite scene, or one of the top scenes, I should say?
Well, one of my top scenes, being a Shining fan, the elevator scene for me really got me. It was just so well done. As soon as they get in the elevator and you can see the blood rising and it's going through the buttons and it's like seeping through, for me, I was like, oh shit, it's going down, and it's like, as, just being filled with blood. And then, as we don't know what's coming from the top of as they try to get through, and it's like, as soon as that thing, I love the way that it was done, where it's like we're seeing the inside of it and then we pull out and we're just seeing, we can hear it, and then finally we just hit and then it all comes gushing out. For me, what a stunning visual. And it's like, obviously you're paying tribute to my favorite horror film of all time, but one of the greatest horror films of all
I
time.
could
And
be there
it's
with
like,
you, actually.
what was that?
I could be there with you on The Shining, man.
You know, we're kicking Dylan on this
Hey,
podcast.
mine is The Thing, and
Yeah,
that creature
I can also respect that, man.
is clearly an
Yeah,
homage to The
that's
Thing.
true.
So
I can
this is
respect both of these
firing on all
opinions.
cylinders. But no, I also love The Shining, guys. It's
I mean, we're naming top 5 horror movies of all time
Yeah,
here
it's got to
anyway.
be in
oh yeah.
everyone's list.
It's all
Uh,
good.
but I think the way they just interwove that, because sometimes I think we've all been there when we're watching horror movies and you're like, oh, they clearly paid tribute here, and it's like, it kind of sticks out as a sore thumb just to pay tribute. But I think this one was so well done, especially even going into um at the beginning of the possession, where she was actually in the elevator, and then
Hmm.
as we're hearing the voices, and then she's strung up for a little bit. I think that perfect wraparound, and then the tension of the actual elevator itself, not working, and then no stairs. I think that added so much, of that, uh, just being stuck into the elements of, we're in this apartment, we're not in a cabin in the woods, but we're stuck in this high rise apartment, which, so it's like, kind of getting from going into the elevator and down into the parking deck. I just thought was a beautiful transition.
Oh yeah. Favorite moments for me, I gotta give it to, honestly, it's almost two sequences. Obviously I love a lot of the Deadite stuff. I love the peephole scene's great. Both the scenes you guys mentioned are great. But I actually really dug the bank vault when they go and they find the stuff, just because I've been so entrenched in trying to deconstruct Evil Dead lore, that they do. I was so curious in my mind. One of the biggest checks they had to make for this movie was, what are they doing with this? Are they going to try to tie this into anything? Are they going to try to just keep this as its own separate entity? And I think they walked the line very well. And that scene's big for me because, again, it also confirms in the following scene when Danny gets the records and is playing the records. And I just love the sound design through not only the bank vault, but when they're playing the records and everything, and how the book reacts. I love the teeth on the book. And, it's one of those things where the speaker even references that this is only one of the three that they know of. And that's just so wonderful to me because I like to look at it. And when my video releases, you guys will get a better explanation on this, but I'm not going to get into all of it. But I like to look at this as, like, at least with these two films, 2013 and this, as they are different Necronomicons. They're different volumes of the Book of the Dead. So that's why certain Deadites are different between films and things like that. That's why I think, like, you get the more monstrous, over the top ones in Army of Darkness, as opposed to here, where they're a little bit more sadistic. They're a little bit more, guttural, I'd almost say, with this one, just because of how much more personal they are in Rise as opposed to some of the other entries. So, like, that was a huge plus for me. It was just, I love when they get into explaining a little bit more of that Evil Dead lore, because for a series that is as consistent as it is, it's not very cut and dry. It's not like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or anything like that, where it's like, we know what we're getting into. You can just, give us the couple bullet points here. It always just is exciting to me to be like, what are they going to do in this edition? What are they going to do in this next entry to expand this story? And again, I think they did a great job with it. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And again, the sound design in this movie is fucking killer.
Oh my god!
Like, there were some sequences that really got to me, and it's loud as hell too. Because there was a couple of scenes in this where I was just like, holy fuck, this is getting, like, intense, especially when they went to those fucking records.
That scene was amazing.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The way that the audio from the records distorted as the incantation went on was fucking creepy. That whole first act, I'm sure we'll get into it, but, like, the tension that they built up. I was actually scared, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, we can dive
gotcha.
into it now, because, like, the only other thing I want to get to next, my next question was about Lee Cronin, but we can save that for a minute if you guys just want to start talking about the film itself, because I know Luke had said that in his review. That was a big point I wanted to touch on here, was just how great they did at just racking up the tension very consistently in here. So, like, as far as the first act goes, like, let's get into it. I mean, other than we'll save the cold open and the wraparound. But I genuinely, again, we said it earlier, I love the building of the family unit in this. That's a big part for me. And of course, there's a lot of great references for fans. But again, yes, just the idea of they're in LA, the earthquake happens, it unleashes, just unfortunately, of course, it's this night. That it unleashes the book onto this family, and now they have to deal with it because, well, Danny decided to go down there and pick it out. But yeah, Evan, first act, how do you give us your thoughts?
The first act, I took a little while to settle into this movie because it's just such a different setting and it's totally new cast of characters. But one of the things that I ended up really, really appreciating about the first while of this movie is how naturally they set up the characters and their relationships to each other. Like, there was nothing that's spoon fed to you. I went back and I was watching 2013, and, like, the introductions, they're like, oh, you're the nurse, oh, you're the girlfriend from the car shop, here's Eric, the high school teacher. And like, there's none of that in this movie. Like, everything felt really natural. Now, they didn't go super in depth on anyone's backstories, but I think that kind of serviced the movie because we almost solely through chemistry, we got to learn about this family dynamic in a way that felt a lot more organic to me. So I really loved how they set that up, and the sense of isolation that they built up through that first act. When the fucking staircase disappears, my heart skipped a beat when that turned out that was broken. Like, that first act is all about building this sense of being trapped and being isolated. And I was genuinely scared. I don't get scared. I don't know what it was about this movie, because I don't get scared by movies very often. But, like, my heart was going through this first act, like, just constantly. It was so creepy the way it was lit. It's a beautifully shot movie. The way they composed their shots through there just built everything up so effectively. And it explodes in, sorry, my dogs are going crazy.
Oh,
it explodes in Act 2, but Act 1 was just this creepy, tense, like...
No, I feel it. Luke,
Yeah.
how did you feel about the first act there?
I mean, not discussing the cold open, but coming off of the cold open, and we're introduced to Beth, and I love the dynamic. It's just, we're in this like grimy club where we're kind of being introduced to her life, and what is she doing? She's taking a pregnancy test, and that plays later on. It's really adding to the stakes, especially us going to see Evil Dead Rise, and we kind of know the concept, and she's going to be involved. This adds to the dynamic that we're going to be dealing with later. And as soon as, she was taking that pregnancy test, and, we could all, connect the dots and what's going to be happening. It's like, the hair on the back of your neck stands up, because it's like, they're adding something new. I think Evil Dead Rise was great in adding to the Evil Dead lore and things that we hadn't seen before, and kind of expanding upon it, because, nothing has been nailed down. Like Dylan said, it's not cut and dry. It's an expansive universe where it's like, well, let's see what this book does. So at that point, I was really intrigued to see how this was going to play. And just getting into that family dynamic again, I think they built the family perfectly. I love the shots of the building that they kept going back to, especially when it was raining. It was like,
Yeah,
it
especially
just
that first opening introduction shot, just when they had
Yeah.
it going right up. Like I
So
was like,
good. It
oh
looked
my
like the
god.
building in Child's Play.
And
Yes,
that's what I
yeah.
was gonna say. It threw me right back to a lot of 80s horror. Just that shot was so iconic. And then, kind of playing with, the fathers left and what they're dealing with then. Again, this is something very different in the Evil Dead franchise. We haven't been introduced to this type of stuff yet. So it was really intriguing to see the evil that's looming and how this is going to play in with everything. And even we're used to those iconic shots of going through the woods very fast, and it's like now we're into the streets of LA, and then Elisa Sutherland gets possessed. It's like, so for me, I absolutely loved it. Like Evan said, they didn't really dive too deep into everyone's backstory, which I think was perfect. I think that's a great element of great screenwriting, where it's like, this person isn't the one that's watches horror movies and is going to give us a long exposition on what's going to be
Luke,
going down here.
what are you alluding to?
I just, that one came out the top of my head. I don't even know. But so so it's like, I love that these were like, you got hints to their backstories, but we didn't harp on anything. It was like, we're dealing with the issue at hand. So that first act, I think, was really perfect. I think that is something that I can't wait to actually own this film so I can go back and study it, because to build characters so that they all play in that second act was so well done by Lee Cronin.
Absolutely. And yeah, I definitely second everything you guys are saying about that. I love the building of tension. Evan, you brought up a good point that I had a thought while you were talking about this, is just like the sense of isolation. It's so well done, because I didn't even like connect the dots again until, and I know I'm jumping ahead here and I'm not going to harp on it too long, until we get to the end of the film with the wraparound. Then I'm like, oh my god, there's like people below them in other floors. I'm like, it just felt so abandoned. It just felt so on its own when they were just stuck there. And I'm just like, fucking hell, like that's insane. And to have that sense in LA, one of the most populated cities, in the United States, is just like, it is really a testament to them that they were able to pull that off. Because again, I think that's a key component to Evil Dead. I think, like, if you look at some of the best entries, it's about building tension. It's about, isolation and everything like that. And just going somewhere where, nope, you can't just like flip on a cell phone and call for help, and yes, they did get around that. They had their own way of doing it. And, it doesn't bother me. I could easily see people just saying like, oh, well, it's unrealistic that the network would be down, blah, blah, all that stuff. I'm like, who fuck cares? Like, also, we have fucking Deadites running around. You're telling me they can't do
Evil
something
Dead,
to
man.
it,
Ash time traveled.
Yeah, right? Yeah, there you go. And so, I really appreciated all of that. I thought that was very solid. Now, to move into the second act here, one thing I wanted to mention, Evan, did you catch the name of the pizza place?
Henrietta's?
Henrietta's, yeah. So I literally nudged Luke when I saw that. I was like,
I
is
was
it fucking
wondering,
good?
because you didn't say what it was in your review, and I was wondering if that was what you were
That's,
referring
yeah,
to.
that was one of the big Easter eggs for
Yeah.
me, where I was just like, here you go. That's awesome. I want a fucking t-shirt for that. Like, I want one of these
Yeah.
like cavity colors
That'd be
or fright
sick.
rags to make that. I think that'd be cool. But yeah, like moving into the second act now, like You know, this is where, you know, everything starts to become unraveled. Obviously, by this point, you know, the mom, I'm getting everybody's names all tossed up, not Beth. What is it? What's her
What the
name?
hell
Is
is
it
her name?
Ellie? I'm
Ellie,
Ellie.
you are right. Yeah, it's Ellie.
okay.
Ellie. Okay, just double checking. Yeah, Ellie. Okay, I kept wanting to call her her actress's name, but Ellie, when she actually gets you know, possessed, and we start really starting to let some of the steam out, like that shit was,
God.
it went on a little longer than I expected, with her kind of like dying per se, and then just kind of sitting there dormant. Like it's like watching a bomb, you know, just sitting in the
Yeah.
middle of the room. It's like, you know, what's going to happen, and then the surprise of getting these other neighbors involved. Like I love the scene where it's the two direct neighbors that they were talking to in the hallway, and he's like, well, can we say a prayer? And she's like, well, we're not religious. And he's like, I think we need to say a prayer, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, that's the kind of stuff I was like, okay, I actually really dig this. Like this is stuff I did not expect from the marketing, you know. I thought
Yeah.
it would just be real self-contained with this family, but like now we're kind of opening this world up a little bit, and that's what I really appreciated.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like that movie did that. Like the movie did that really well across the board. I
Mm,
felt like it was such a great balance of like introducing new things to this world and new directions for this series to take, while also still very much sticking to what makes Evil Dead enjoyable.
mm-hmm.
And that second act, that whole sequence went between the time when Ellie first gets possessed and when she wakes back up and starts wreaking havoc, I found really, really effective.
Mm-hmm.
The that little detail when she's laying in the bed and they shut her eyes and then they open
And it
right back up.
opens, yeah.
Oh my god, man, I had fucking goosebumps from that. And the fly landing right on her eye, just the whole thing was so well done. And obviously, once she gets out of bed, she's not a morning person, and and she doesn't hide that. Um, it was really good, man. The second act is just pure chaos, and it was really enjoyable. That's the part that like you go to Evil Dead for the second act of this movie. The third act was heaven, but I
Oh,
felt like the
absolutely.
second act of this is kind of what you expect from an Evil Dead movie, and I think it's what most people are going to expect this whole movie to be like, is mostly that second act. But the first and the third, I felt, were the most unique.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not at all a slight against the
The
second
second
act.
act.
It's still extremely effective and it's a ton of fun, which is largely due to Alyssa Sutherland just being fucking powerhouse.
Absolutely. And then Luke, you got any favorite moments in the second act? What are your thoughts there as we kind of move into it?
I mean, I touched on, as she's getting possessed a little bit, but I absolutely love the shot of the door opening and you just see her silhouette coming through the doorway
Dude.
and the way she plays it off. I mean, with the movements and everything, just, uh, again, I use the word epic. I mean, it just fits, with this entire film. But, as soon as she goes in the kitchen, we saw it in the trailer, but I loved actually seeing it expanded upon where she's, just throwing eggs into a pan. And then the line delivery of
Yeah.
"Don't let them get my babies" is
Mm-hmm.
just absolutely perfect, because I go back to the stakes in this. And again, this is such a different film than what we're used to seeing with The Evil Dead, because it's a mom and her children. And for her to come out of it for 1 second to say, "It's in me, don't let them get my babies." Oh my gosh, it's just like gut wrenching, and then instantly goes back into it. And when we even get her into the bathtub, again, we saw some of that stuff. Mommy's with the maggots now.
Best line.
Epic. Oh my
Absolutely
Iconic.
gosh.
iconic
Super
line.
iconic.
Like we talk about
Instantly.
t-shirts. If I can get a t-shirt with that
They
on
have
there.
it. They
Oh, do
have it.
they?
Yeah,
Fright
Fright
Rags just
Rags.
put out their
Oh my
line,
gosh,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to, that's an instant purchase for
I
me.
could get
But
the peephole one.
Yeah.
That's a great one too.
and one, we were talking about scenes, and one of the ones that escaped my brain, but I thought about it when Bridget is in the sheet
Oh
and
yeah.
Oh my god, man.
behind
Cassie.
Danny and Cassie, right? That's
Yep,
her name.
Cassie.
And just like stalking them, and they have no idea. Absolutely
That was
terrifying to me.
scary as shit.
And it's
Mhm.
like in that second act, it's such a big, undertaking to kind of keep the audience enthralled. And so much goes down, there. And it's like to kind of keep everything in line because so much is happening. I mean, even the neighbor, I'm forgetting his name, but gets his eye bitten out. I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah,
and then it spit out, and it
yeah,
goes to the, it goes right
another
into the
great
other guy's
reference
mouth.
yeah.
there.
And that's where
So,
it's like, reference wise, again,
Yeah.
all the references felt organic. They didn't feel
Yes.
shoehorned in. And it's just like, everything about this film felt natural to me, where it's like, I think we're all saying here, as an Evil Dead fan, I think you leave the theater feeling absolutely satisfied with everything they give us here. And I think that second act has, we get in the third act and we'll talk about gore, but the second act is a great amount of gore when Bridget is chewing on the glass, and and when she mentions where she looks at is it her name's Beth?
Beth, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to keep all the names straight. And she says, "You don't like having things in your tummy either, right, Aunt Beth?" And
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
like, boy, so it's like that
These
second
Deadites
act.
have no chill, man.
None at all. And that's where it's like, and props to all the actors in this. They bring again that deadite charisma that I think was missing in 2013. And it's like the line delivery in a lot of this. There are so many great lines in this because I think it is that delivery. So the second act for me really delivered in terms of, the amount of deaths, the amount of gore, because again, looking at the stakes of this, you're like, are the kids on the table here? And it's like, yes, they are.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that was one of those things too where I was wondering the whole time, like, is Cassie on the table? And there were a few times I thought, oh, they're gonna do it. Like they're
Yeah.
gonna fucking kill her.
They actually
They make you
cast
believe it.
teenagers to play teenagers too.
Yeah, right.
Who would
Like
have
that's
thought?
something you gotta
You want to talk
appreciate.
about innovation in horror?
That's the way to do it right there. But yeah, no, I agree with you guys. I loved all that stuff. The sheet scene again, I don't think there's been a more impactful like sheet sequence since fucking David F. Sandberg's short film. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Evan, the guy who did Lights Out.
Yeah. What's it called again?
I forget the title of it, but it's on his YouTube channel. I'll try to pull it up.
I
But
might
it's
have seen it. Yeah.
yeah, it's a really great.
I
It
don't mind
involves a
Lights Out.
sheet. It's real fucking creepy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did such a great job with this. Like I love that sequence. I like the part where when she's puking up the worms and she's like, I got bugs in my tummy.
So
I don't
disturbing.
like bugs. Like that's so well done. And like that switch for Beth, her actress, just really killed it. I know it's Gabriella Echoes, I think is her name.
Yes,
But yeah,
it's
she
Bridget.
absolutely killed it. Or Bridget, my bad. What
Yeah.
did I say? Did I say Beth? I don't
Beth.
Beth,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
My bad. Um, yeah, she absolutely killed it there. She was definitely one of the more effective deadites in the film. But I really think like the cherry on top of everything in the second act, other than again, I really like the lore stuff. I talked about the records and everything. They go back to that. I like hearing more about the little church society thing that they kind of had going on there. But it's the people scene. I mean, just when they initially get her out in the hallway, and then you realize, oh shit, all the neighbors are still out there. And she starts wrecking house and she rips that kid's arms off and flings him at the wall. I'm
So
just like,
good.
fucking A, dude. Like that was intense. That is really, I think, like you see that in the trailer, and I thought, oh, that's a cool shot. But I think that, overall, the amount of use that kind of element, the way they tried to shoot that got used was just insane. Like I
What
did
a
not
theater
expect that
movie.
going into it. Yeah. What's up?
What a great theater movie. I'm just
Oh,
thinking like
absolutely.
Absolutely.
just thinking about like sequences like that. Like when people say that there are some movies that are best seen in a theater. This is it. Like
Yeah, I agree. And this was almost on HBO Max a year ago, so that's kind of
Unbelievable.
wild that they
And
almost just sent this straight to streaming.
that would have
one
been a
one
huge
one of the people
disservice.
scenes, Dylan, you're talking about. Well, I forget the neighbor's name, but when she's right there in front of the people, and then we just see he unloads and she gets shot off screen, and then as he's walking through, it's only for a brief second. I absolutely love where he gets taken down, and you just see the top of his gun going right across the people and then out of frame, and then you just hear a bunch of commotion going on. It was so well done. Like they could have extended that people scene for me probably for another 2 minutes. I would have been
Yeah,
just enthralled with it.
such well crafted sequences in this movie.
Absolutely. And, I think now would be a good time, since we are talking about the well-crafted sequences, we're gushing about that, just to highlight Lee Cronin. I mean, like, the guy was handpicked by Sam Raimi, just like Fede Alvarez was. He had one other feature film credit to his name. He did work with him. I believe they got to know each other on was it the 50 States of Fright or whatever it was?
I think that's right.
So, yeah. Did you guys have Quibi in Canada, Evan?
Quibi. It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so like right at 2020, not to dive into this whole thing, like right about the start of the year, we had this service called Quibi here in the States. It was literally like TikTok for TV. So like they had shows that were like you watch a minute or like 2 minutes, and then the next episode would be the next 2 minutes.
This
And
says it was American, yeah.
yes, so like that was the whole gimmick of it. And Sam Raimi had a show on there. I believe it was the 50 States of Fright or something like that. I'll pull it up. But that's where Lee Cronin and him got hooked up, because it was like each state had its own horror short and you could watch them and everything. It's a cool idea. And I think Sam Raimi's was pretty interesting too. I'd look it up. I think it's called like the Golden Arm or something. But yeah, so they got to know each other there. And I just think that working on that stuff, like just working on a short and really seeing it, because again, he picked Fede Alvarez off of his short Panic Attack, and just seeing what he was able to do that with limited amount of resources. I think he just has an eye for understanding, like, okay, this is the kind of person I want working on the Evil Dead franchise. And the fact that he still has that control is kind of fucking impressive in today's day and age, because like he shepherds it. And it's like, yeah, I don't care if we have to wait another 10 years for another entry. I hope we don't. But like, if this is what it takes and this is the quality we're getting and this is what it is to find and select these people, like, it's all to it. So, Evan, your thoughts on Lee Cronin?
The dude was absolutely fantastic. You know, I'm comparing it a lot to the 2013 movie, obviously, because it was the last one before this. And there's a tone, there's an atmosphere that Lee Cronin establishes that resonates with me so much with what I love in horror. And it's obviously it's a lot of things. It's the feeling of isolation. It's the way the movie is framed and lit. There's a lot of things that go into that. But the way that he builds up tension and then executes sequences in a satisfying way felt so perfect. And Sam Raimi was just saying that they're hoping to have these movies every 2 or 3 years now. And if that's the case, I don't know if they're planning on having different directors for each one. I'm all in if they just want to give it to Lee Cronin and tell him to go for a while.
And just do a couple films?
Yeah, because if we can keep this going, because I want to see more. It was something with the 2013 movie. I want to see more Mia. I don't know if we're ever going to get that, but like I would like to get some consistent characters going. So if we can get him back, I'm absolutely okay with that, because he does such a good job. He's such a good director. He wrote the film extremely well, but I think the biggest thing is his direction is so fucking pristine.
No, I agree with you there. I think that he does a fantastic job behind the camera, just inventive too. Like,
Yeah.
again, the creativity there of just saying, like, yeah, I'm playing with Evil Dead. Like, I'm going to, try my best to come up with something unique and give
Have
you
fun with it.
shots you didn't expect. Luke, your thoughts, Lee Cronin?
I mean, directing and writing, this guy was firing on all cylinders. I admittedly have not seen any of his previous work, so I was really going into this one cold. Would A Hole in the Ground was the one that he had directed previously? Is that correct?
Yes.
And I meant to watch that one prior to this. I just never got around to it, but I was really intrigued going in. Obviously, the trailer had sold me. And we go back to just from a writing perspective. Bringing that family dynamic, because you look at, I have a love for the 2013. I think it's great. Fede Alvarez was really playing with the basic Evil Dead formula. We're not really stepping out of the box here, but looking at Evil Dead Rise, it's a new setting, it's a new dynamic, so that could be rather daunting, even when you're playing in a franchise that hasn't had a stellar movie set. Whereas Evil Dead, I mean, we're on agreement. There isn't a bad one in the bunch. So, you know, you don't want to be the first. So it's like kind of taking on that task and, you know, trying to knock it out of the park. I'll say, you know, from my perspective, directing, writing wise, the guy killed it. I mean, we sat here and talked about so many scenes just as soon as we were given, you know, that the exterior apartment scene, you know, that shot was, again, we'll go back to it, absolutely epic. The tone of this film with the rain outside, I think, was so well done. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, as we mentioned, isolation, and Dylan had said, you know, there are people underneath them on the floors. I love when she opens up the window and yells outside for someone to
Oh
come help.
man.
And, you know, so it's like that sense of isolation, being in the middle of the city.
And he can't
And
hear her over the rain.
yep, and it's like no
Perfect.
one's coming to help you. And I think like playing with that dynamic of let's get out of the cabin in the woods and bring Evil Dead into the city. You know, that's a task where it's like it can go great or it can go bad. And Lee Cronin has an eye for this stuff, you know, and it's like Sam Raimi picking these guys. Evil Dead Rise is something where if this was the start of your horror career, this will catapult you into greatness just because of how many great things are in this film that we can pull out.
Absolutely. And you know, I didn't get a chance to look into it at all, but I wonder if you know what that sequence when he was yelling down at the person. I know that Bruce Campbell is supposedly hidden in this movie somewhere, they say. I wonder if that's him.
Wasn't he on, like, I'm pretty sure, I'm 95% certain that he had a voice cameo in the vinyl record. I'm
Is that what you think it was?
when you rewatch the movie, because I don't know if you're going to see it first, but I'm pretty sure the person who says it's called the Book of the Dead for a reason, I think that's Bruce Campbell.
Okay. All right. Well, I will definitely have
Yeah.
to give that a look see. I know they were kind of waiting. He said he'd give somebody like $50 or something if they found it and someone at South by Southwest found it, of course,
Yeah.
like instantly. So it's like, yeah, never even gave us a
I
chance.
think he was a voice cameo there. I could be wrong, but
I will definitely be paying more attention to that. I'm going to try to go see it again tomorrow night. But all right, we got only a few minutes left. I want to wrap into the third act here. Obviously, this is again one of Evan's favorite parts. So, Evan, take us away. Talk about the third, and then we'll talk about the prologue and wrap around and finish up.
have either of you played Elden Ring?
I have a little bit.
Have
I
you
had it
gotten to
downloaded.
Godric?
Yeah, no, I've seen the gameplay on
Okay.
TikTok and stuff. A lot of that one. I haven't gotten there myself, but I get it.
Man, I love Souls games. I love Elden Ring. I play these games way too much. And as soon as I realized that there was a fucking grafted deadite coming up, my excitement just rose through the roof. Everything, I think this movie, it really, there was fan service, but it didn't feel annoying. It felt so organic, and everything from the point on of them chanting Dead by Dawn, which
Yes.
sequence was just chills,
I
goosebumps.
honestly just forgot about that.
Yeah,
Until
that
now,
whole
I
thing.
love that.
From that point on, my jaw was basically hanging open for the rest of the movie. This third act is so effective and so unbelievably satisfying. And I was saying in my review, this movie does not blue ball once. When something gets teased, it's gonna happen. We had the drone that got teased. Fucking happened.
Yep.
Cheese grater happened. And that wood chipper down in the fucking park. I don't know why it's there.
Yeah.
But like,
I think it's a part of, like a lot of people have been throwing criticisms out. Like this movie didn't need a chainsaw. Like how are you going to fit a chainsaw in a high rise? I believe that's the truck for their neighbor, the old neighbor who's like, oh, my tools are downstairs. I think that's his truck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would make sense.
Mhm.
But I don't care why I don't need an explanation
right?
for
Like,
why it's there. I don't give a shit. There could literally be zero explanation for why that's there, and I would not even mention it as a criticism. This movie is fun as hell, and that's the point. It doesn't need to make sense. But it does. It makes sense because they just went above and beyond for it. But, man, that bit down... I will say, just to balance things out a little bit, I don't think the grafted deadite was used quite as much as I would have liked it to be. It was a really great build-up, and I don't know if it quite paid off the way I would have wanted it to. It's still very cool, but it didn't get much to do. Um, it doesn't get much time in the limelight, and it gets taken out pretty quickly. And they didn't really do anything particularly cool with it. Looking at it is fucking awesome, and its reveal's amazing. The whole build up to it is amazing. But if I'm gonna have any criticism about the third act, that's really gonna be the thing that I'm gonna point to. Is just wishing that they would have done more with that thing because it's so cool. It does make me really excited though to see if this is the mind that Lee Cronin has. If he's given a little more money, what's he gonna do?
Yeah, his next movie, Thaw. I don't know if you read the plot synopsis
No.
about that. So it's going to be like like it's takes place in a world where all the polar ice caps and everything have completely melted.
Oh my god,
Uh,
I'm so sold already.
and
I
yeah,
know where
there
this is
it's about
going.
people who find like a place to live. But there's horrors from underneath that unfroze, and
You
they're
know,
coming to kill. It's like a creature feature.
this sounds somewhat inspired by a particular movie.
I think you're correct.
Yeah.
But Luke, your thoughts on the third act? I know that also has one of your favorite sequences, obviously the elevator sequence. But what else
Man,
sticks
so
out to
good.
you there?
And this is really where this film fell apart for me. No. It's like being in the hallways. As we get almost a pseudo creature feature here in the third act, I think, where I don't, none of us were expecting it. I mean, you sign up for Deadites, and then we get this, almost the thing like creature, and
Made me very
um,
happy.
obviously, I knew you were wetting your pants over there, but um, as we get into the that act of the hallway where everyone's coming alive after the neighbors had been killed, and it's like I didn't know exactly where they were going, and as they're ripping to Ellie, it's like, okay, this is getting interesting, and then as we get into like I said, I absolutely love the elevator scene, as the things coming through the roof. And then we get out into the parking deck. Even the setup from the parking deck at the very beginning, where they have the pizzas and everything, it looked terrifying just from the start there. So as soon as this is where it's like, okay, so everything's going down the parking deck. I was absolutely sold on it because it does have that sense of terror, just the way that it is lit down there. Like Evan, I think I mentioned it in our review yesterday, where it's like I didn't know I wanted it until I was in it. I really would have loved to see them maybe even drop a floor in the apartment building for just 1 second and just have that monster go through a floor
Yeah.
of them chasing just an extra 10 minutes. I mean, this was a short runtime anyway. We could have, us being greedy Evil Dead fans, I don't think anyone would have complained about that. But what we got, in the parking deck, I think that tension was perfect as they think they're going to be getting out, and then they get stuck, and then you kind of just see this thing come out of the exhaust, and it's
Yeah.
kind of concealed. I love the way they concealed it from the very beginning of them going around the car and only getting glimpses of this thing, and then when you think they're actually going to get out, and then they pull Cassie back in. Oh my gosh, like that was like, we talk about stakes. It's like
Dude.
Beth is out. She can book it and be done, but she's got to get back in there and get Cassie. I absolutely love that, and it's
So
like
well done.
from what we had seen. Again, it's heartbreaking to see, Bridget and Danny and Ellie of what they've become. So it's like at that point you're really fearing for Cassie. It's like, is she going to join him? We know everything's on the table here. So like for me, I bought into it. I was like, they're not going to leave anything on the table. So it's like Cassie could very well not make it out of this film. So, for me, I bought in, and I absolutely loved, the wood chipper thing for me, I had no issues with, because it's like, yeah, people can say, why is it there? Well, why wouldn't it be there? It's a high rise. Who knows who lives there? So it's like, for me, I had no issues with it. So I
Yeah.
love that they worked it in the way it was able to end with the use of a wood chipper. And again, what is it? Raining blood again? I was
Yeah.
sold.
That
Just
was
the
a nice
gore.
nod. That's what I'm saying. The fan service is really well
Yeah.
done. They even got the blood rain from 2013.
Yep, and I was sold. So it's like, when we get the splatter and gore that we got in that third act, I was fully on board. They delivered.
Oh yeah, and again, I can agree with guys on all those aspects, but for time's sake, I will say I'm gonna rattle off just a couple of my favorite points so we can get into the final point here. But I really liked the creature, obviously it coming around the car. I agree with you, Evan. I think that we could have seen more of it. I do think that it might have been intentional just because I don't know how much of that was practical and how much of it was
Yeah.
CG. And if you look at like The Thing 2011, which I actually think is pretty underrated, when you see a grafted creature like that again, I think they were afraid of getting criticism like that. And it didn't have a giant budget. We have to remember this was originally
Yeah.
budgeted and pitched for a streaming film, so it didn't have theatrical in mind. So there might be a chance that there was more footage. They just cut around it a little bit more. But overall, I love the creature. One of the scenes that impacted me a lot was I liked that um, we saw Ellie's head at the end there after everything was just cut up and cut off. She just gets her final couple words there. It's just, again, so Evil Dead 2 just to have the talking head and everything. I don't know if it was directly trying to reference that, but it's one of those things where I was just like, great, I love it, the consistency. And yeah, overall, I thought it was great. I thought that the whole thing was very intense, and it's a bang up ending. So now I guess for the final section here before we do wrap up is just the prologue and the wraparound. I know for you and me, Evan, that's kind of our big critique. I'll let you take it away on that. Just, let us know your thoughts fully.
So I see what the idea was, because obviously with what Sam Raimi was saying about wanting more Evil Dead movies, they want to open this up to more possibilities. So I can understand that. I actually really like the idea of it spreading out from this apartment, because now we're like, oh, there are a lot of people in this apartment building. How many of them came into contact with this thing? Like it opens up a lot of possible, places for future entries to go to, because we don't know how many people are left in that apartment, and there's obviously still shit in there. We don't know how many might have, said hi. So I thought that was really cool. I thought the sequences were really well executed. That opening scene it's really cool. Like, it's a fun thing to watch. It gave me one of my favorite title cards in a while. That was fucking awesome. It was unnecessary. Like, it didn't tie into the story or our characters at all. But again, like, we're here to see cool Deadite shit. And if this does set up the idea of this spreading out, I'm fine with it. I don't think it takes away from the movie for me, at least not a whole lot. But yeah, it didn't serve much purpose, but I still enjoyed it.
Awesome. And then Luke, you were actually on the other side of this point with us, so you actually enjoyed what they did there. So feel free, let us know.
Yeah,
justify it, sell it.
I'll sell it. Oh. Well,
There you go.
For selling it, I do love what they did with the opening scene with the drone. I thought that was a lot of fun, especially us being Evil Dead fans,
Very cool
knowing
misdirection.
what the original and how that was created, and then looking at a 2023 and how that is created and how that scene has become so iconic. I love that they open with that, and then they kind of are like, oh, well, it is a drone. It's a little bit of a joke, which I thought was a nice wink and a nod. Like, the cold open for me, my viewings of horror is you have to end on horror. And, I don't want, especially in Evil Dead films, I don't want a nicely tight bow on everything, and so it's like looking at that cold open, it already heightens your expectations to be like, what is going on here? How is this going to tie into Beth taking a pregnancy test? And it's like, I think through the rest of the film, you're kind of like, it's in your mind, but then you also forget it, and then as soon as someone comes out of their apartment building at the very end and the wheels start turning, you're like, oh, this is how it's going to tie in. And the opening has a great core effect. I do love when, I don't know any of their names. I don't know if we're meant to.
I don't think we get them. I think the Deadite girl is Jessica, I believe.
Okay.
I think
And
they're credited with names on IMDb, but I don't know
okay.
if we actually hear them.
And when we have the one female character reading a book, and the Deadite sits up and is reading the book,
That was great.
you know, I thought that was a great aspect of, you know, just pure terror. And then obviously her getting her scalp ripped off, I thought was phenomenal. I think, you know, packaged in, I don't know what the runtime was on that cold open, but I think they managed to jam pack that film with great gore effects to really start this film. And obviously, that title card, you can't beat it. So for me, it really did the trick in terms of a cold open. I don't think your cold open has to necessarily tie into the expansion of the story that we're going to go on a ride with, but I love that they do wrap it around and say, okay, so this is the meaning for it. And again, it shows that evil's still out there. You know, it leaves us lingering to say,
Yeah.
you know, if we touch on this again, that's cool. I don't think we need to necessarily, because it's just like this evil has been unleashed and now it's out there. And we thought Beth and Cassie maybe have vanquished this, but it was just a false ending, you know. So it's still out there wreaking havoc, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was well done, and for me was something where I think it's a perfect open because we get a different introduction to characters a little bit later on. So for me, it sold me.
Yeah, man. It was my biggest complaint, and again, it's not a giant complaint, you know.
It's like
As far
complaining
as
about a cookie and a bag of diamonds. Like, come
yeah,
on,
it's kind of like it's a nice little treat,
still
you
a
know. It's
cookie.
like it's to me like putting both together. It's a nice little short film for Evil Dead in a way. Like it's almost like if this was Lee Cronin had to make a little Evil Dead short to sell the same Sam Raimi. It's like to say I understand the assignment, I get it. I can make one of these movies. That's how I can kind of perceive it. But yeah, I do like the idea of it setting up that hopefully we're going to get more. I know they were really adamant that we were going to get more after 2013. So honestly, I'm going to hope that we get more, but we'll see. I think this movie is going to kill it though this weekend. So I think that it's going to be pretty good. But overall, yeah, it's really my biggest complaint on the film. You know, but again, you're right. It's like a cookie and a bag of diamonds. It's just kind of like it's got cool effects. We're here to see Deadites, and yes, that title card is badass. So yeah, it's like it is what it is. But for the overall narrative, it's not going to hurt it. And probably on subsequent watches, I'm just gonna find more things I like about it. So, but yeah, guys, that's gonna about bring us to the end here of our Evil Dead Rise spoiler talk. I know we could probably talk for many more hours deconstructing, you know, piece by piece. We got to watch the movie a few
It's
more
just
times,
so good,
so
man.
you know, like
I'll definitely be going in depth on it when the Blu-ray's out. I want to fucking do a deep dive on it.
oh yeah, and Luke and I, we've already discussed we're going to be covering each Evil Dead movie on the podcast. So you're going to get another 2 maybe 3 hours on Evil Dead Rise at some point down the road. You know, we'll see how it goes. So, but yeah, it's a movie we'll definitely be revisiting again. And yeah, Evan, I'll be looking forward to your video when this comes out on Blu-ray.
I'll be down the line, but yeah.
Oh yeah, hopefully by then we have some good special features that really get us behind the scenes and we can really hear what's going on. A commentary would be nice. I'd like to pick Lee Cronin's brain a little bit about just his decision making and some of the things that came to light when he was writing it. Because again, it's another thing we didn't even touch on is the man wrote the movie too. So it's not like he had a script, like not like he was handed a script. He had to come up with this shit. So
it's very impressive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Newcomer fucking nailed it.
Absolutely. But alrighty, so I guess that's gonna wrap us up here, guys. As always, yes, if you are now just discovering the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Also, go visit Evan over on his channel, Rockland Graves Productions. Actually, Evan, if you want to, you go ahead and let our folks know where they can find you and just what you got going on.
Yeah, so I run Rockland Graves Productions, another fellow horror YouTube channel. I do movie reviews. I'm trying to upload bi-weekly right now. I've kind of got a bunch of videos coming out right now just because of the way schedule's lined up. But generally speaking, I upload every second week. I like to go in depth on movies. Very, very heavily edited, a little less laid back, but I still really enjoy making those videos. Yeah, it's weird because at all of these I've been saying, oh, I'm going through the Evil Dead movies, but now that's almost done. I still have my 2013 video coming out, and I still have a franchise ranking that I'm going to be doing sometime next week. and
Yeah,
I'm
I don't know if
excited
we're
to
gonna do a
that.
franchise ranking, but it has crossed my mind. It
Yeah,
is something we did that with Halloween, and that was
Yeah.
quite an undertaking.
I
But
will be doing that as well at
ooh,
some point, hopefully soon. I want to do that. I'll have a very big Halloween Ends review that I have started working on. I know, Dylan, you said you found me through my Halloween Kills videos, so you know that when I review Halloween movies,
you go deep.
I go
So,
deep. What is that
I
video, like 50 minutes long or something like that?
yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it because again, that's where I found you was your kills
Yeah.
review.
Well, that
So
Ends review is probably going to be my longest video on the channel.
I'm looking forward to it. I
Yeah.
can't wait because that's definitely something I want to hear your thoughts. Because again,
Yeah.
that is a film we could all talk about and very much
Well,
disagree on.
yeah, I was
So
thinking if you guys hadn't already covered those movies, that would be an interesting trilogy to look at because we definitely differ there.
we definitely covered the first two on podcasts, but we could definitely do
Oh,
ends.
you
So when
didn't
we
do
do
Ends.
what we didn't do ends. So when we
Oh.
cover ends, we'll have you come on for
So
sure.
that
Because
will not be an echo chamber.
no, that will not. We're
No.
very
Okay.
Luke especially. You can see it in his eyes. He's a little
Yeah.
bit dead inside just mentioning it. So, but yeah,
He
no,
doesn't want to
that's
do it.
well. See, the film is basically just a remake of Christine.
Don't
I think a superior. He hates when I do that. So, but
don't
yeah.
even mention Christine when you're talking Halloween Ends.
I like Halloween Ends more than Christine.
I'm signing off. We're done here.
But yes, guys, thank you so much for watching. Of course, hit that subscribe button for both the channels here. Yeah, we're here to bring you more Halloween, Evil Dead, all kinds of horror movie content as we continue on here. And oh yeah, I guess that's about it for us. Stay tuned on the channel. Lots of great stuff coming. More interviews, more early reviews, hopefully. And yeah, until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And my name's Evan from Rockland Graves.
And stay scared.